I don't know.
Done watching the volleyball?
I'm tired.
Yeah. You're back, Glenn. You're back. You're back in your rightful place.
I can see things.
Sure.
I think it's down,
They're just talking about you.
They took the skirt off.
He's wearing pants.
He's the only one wearing the pants in this relationship.
That's what I was thinking too. Good, how are you? Good.
I'm like, what is all that? I'm going to discuss it, forget she prints it all out.
Oh.
Or the last one.
Did you get your left?
No, I'm good.
I think Mike has one for you.
I'm ready to go. He doesn't care. Mike doesn't care about that.
Yeah, I don't care.
Mike doesn't care
I
about
can drive Sunday. I haven't driven on a Sunday in a while.
that.
Really love Sunday. Kind of, yeah. Then,
Yeah.
He's got it for you.
oh, I want
Mark, can you handle my leg?
All right, I'd like to begin by starting with the pledge to the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call this evening, we have Glenn Bobek, trustee, Jay Grover, trustee, Nicole Novak, trustee, Jude Coons, district clerk, Dr. Brian Graham, superintendent, Ashley Dreyer, president, Sue Marston, vice president. We have Joy Lamarca, trustee, and Robin Curry, trustee. We also have Dr. Ruby Harris joining us virtually, and assistant superintendent for business and finance, and our assistant superintendent for People Personnel Services, Cheryl Cardone, is also joining us virtually. A couple announcements, if you could silence your cell phones, please, and just note the emergency exits are directly behind me and directly in front of me. If I could have a motion to approve the agenda for today, please, April 12th, 2021. All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. If I could have a motion to approve the minutes from March 22nd, 2021, please.
No motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 7-0. We do not have any student ambassadors this evening. So we will move on to our correspondence, recognition, and good news. And we have Cheryl Cardone to talk about some special awards we've had some of our faculty and staff receive.
Thank you. Good evening. I am happy to announce that our Grand Island school nurses received the yellow Zanta, the yellow rose from Zanta. They were nominated by Denise Dunbar, so thank you for Denise. And on March 10th, they were at the Sidway Fitness Room. They each received a yellow rose for their significant impact in our schools during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of this. We are very proud of all of our nurses and thank them very much for their impact and all that they've done for our faculty, staff, and students during this trying times. So I wanted to introduce them. I'm trying to see if everybody's on. So I will just list them. And if you are here tonight, give a wave. I do see Anne-Marie Stewart. Hi, Anne-Marie. Congratulations. Tara Kowalik. Dawn Frozolone, Darlene Ryan, Dana DeLuke, Mary Ebert, Lori Brown, and Suzanne Savage. So again, congratulations, everyone. Very happy to announce this. And again, thank you, Denise, for nominating them.
Yes, thank you, Denise, and congratulations. I don't know if, Anne-Marie, if you want to say anything, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I will say that we are so grateful for all of the work our school nurses have done on committees here at Grand Island, not only giving us their advice and their input as far as ensuring the safety and well-being of our students, but also with the temperature scanning. I mean, it's just the everyday things that have increased in terms of your responsibilities, which were great to begin with. And there have been so many instances this year where, you know, whether a student's having a seizure or a choking incident, where you have literally saved lives and you have ensured that our students are safe. And we're very grateful for all of the work that you do. I don't know if there's anybody that wants to speak. I know I can see Anne-Marie there in the people that are joining us virtually.
Sure, I can say a few words on behalf of all the nurses. Thank you so much, Denise, for nominating us. As you said, this has been an extremely challenging year. And, you know, we also want to thank the administration for the support we've received from them in, you know, just basically keeping everyone safe. That is our main goal, and doing everything we can to ensure that that happens. And on behalf of all the nurses who have gone above and beyond the call of duty this year, you know, I'd like to speak for all of them and thank you as well.
Thank you. Moving on, we have the public comment session, agenda items only. We did not have anyone sign up. So that brings us to curriculum and instruction. And we need a motion to approve curriculum and instruction item 8, please. I'll motion. And the second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0, and that will, that is for our school calendar. So that will be up online then, probably, I'm guessing tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we should, Jude, I think we should be able to do that tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and moving on to personnel instructional, if I could have a motion to approve PI1, PI2, PI3, PI4, and PI5, please. I'll motion. And the second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Personnel non-instructional, if I could have a motion to approve PNI 1 and PNI 2, please. And the second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 7-0. That brings us to the finance section with Dr. Harris.
Okay, so I have a lot of stuff on here. I told Patty we're going to work this better when there's budget presentations. There won't be as many items in the future. Items A, B, and C all deal with obsolete areas. So we have obsolete books for Sidway, some obsolete equipment for food service, as well as obsolete equipment pertaining to the middle school and their mailboxes. They got new mailboxes in the capital project. If you have not been able to see how nice it looks in their office space, definitely schedule a tour or pop in, either way. After that, you will see item D, which is the Office of State Comptroller audit, the response, and the corrective action plan. This component requires action because there is a corrective action plan which has to be uploaded to the state and submitted to the Office of State Comptroller. This audit was a small audit. We have participated in larger audits where they're looking at financial information or procedural components, but they randomly selected maybe like 13 districts, 13 to 20 school districts to look at the transparency of financial information on the district website, and they provided some recommendations. We already provided a response, but we are now able to, because the report is made public, we are now able to submit the corrective action plan for approval. Item E deals with our 2020 risk assessment, which is an internal audit that occurs. And this is the report as well as the corrective action plan. This information has went before the audit committee for review, and any type of input or questions were allowed at that time when that meeting occurred. But this plan of action, so your corrective action plan, always is uploaded to the state, and that is due within the next couple of days. So that is on there for action. The item after that is capital projects. It's change orders over 15,000. You do see 3 file attachments here, but you see the typing. It says 2 change orders for Ferguson Electric. It should say 2 change orders for Ferguson Electric, and then 1 for the Heath Road ceiling change order. The Ferguson Electric are old ones based on just some review in wanting to make sure that what campus had and what the district had and what the board approved all aligned. We did notice there were 2 that had not went on for board action, so we have placed them here. And I'll go into a little bit more detail when I get to the other update as well. G is budget transfers over $15,000, which is really in the capital area. And I think that is all for action, A through G.
Okay, thank you. Great, if I could have a motion for the action items A through G, please. And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you. H is the check warrants for February. I is the school website global, so that gives you a summary of all of the districts that were part of the Office of State Comptroller's audit. It just gives you kind of a comparison across the board of what occurred. Their individual reports, if anybody is ever interested in reading other school districts' individual reports, those are available on the Office of State Comptroller website, but I did include it here as informational. J is the treasurer's report, K is the revenue status report, and then L is the monthly construction report. We are going to include this on a monthly basis. This is what we use to reconcile to make sure that the architects, that the construction manager and the district are all on the same page of what has transpired thus far in its entirety, as well as what is happening with the change orders. So it's a cross-check method. And this will also provide you with the information of what is happening across the board, whether it's a 15,000 plus or under that in reference to change orders. And, oh, Lord, you have more. M is budget transfers under 15,000. And then after that, it's just the budget presentation.
Just that. Just it.
All right, did you?
All right, Ruby, I think we will present that budget presentation. I know you're
Pulling it up now.
You are in charge, so you can pull it up for everybody to see.
Okay. And just confirm that you can see it. Can you see it, Dr. Graham?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
So as you know, Ruby and I will take turns and share information with you and our community regarding the budget. We always like to start off with the mission statement, which really is that we are here to inspire all students to achieve their highest potential by fostering academic excellence, personal growth, and social responsibility. I know you've all seen the mission. Sometimes people forget to talk about the mission, but literally this is why we are here. As a board and as a superintendent and a faculty and staff, we're charged with the task to do everything we can to inspire our students to be able to do just a little bit more every day. Our budget goals, we've talked a lot about them, but it's important to highlight them as always, to develop a long-term sustainable budget designed to provide the best diversified educational program for our students. Also, our goals have been to retain all the community mandated student programs and activities, as well as to the best extent possible, protect our fund balance and reserves. As the board knows, we have 6 strategic goals that are the umbrella over our entire 5-year strategic plan. The first is to steward the district toward improved services and support that foster the wellness and behavioral health of our students, to continue to work with district stakeholders to improve the district's connectedness to all that are on Grand Island, as well as throughout the Western New York communities, to make inter-building communications and practices as seamless as possible, to foster a level of academic achievement emblematic of a championship school district, to ensure the completion of our curriculum maps and our STEAM curriculum, and to review, revise, and expand the benchmark assessments that help us keep track of where students are throughout the year. Tonight, Ruby, if you could just share a little bit about our agenda, that would be great.
Sure. So as we do each meeting, we will go over the current and projected enrollment, provide you with the retirement updates. Not much has changed there. There is much to talk about in reference to the proposed budget, so the enacted budget, and we'll go through federal funds and revenue sources, and then we'll talk about major expenses. The bus proposition information is in here. We will do a recap, different things to consider. As we have to, per state requirement, we have to let it be known where we are with our fund balance, so there's transparency there. And we will talk about the tax cap and the rate, and then, you know, the budget calendar of upcoming dates of action and the budget vote.
Excellent, thank you, Ruby. So as the board has seen over the past 2 budget presentations, so we start off with enrollment from last year. You can see that throughout our school system, we have 2,815 students, grades K through 12. Starting in September this year, that went down to 2,742, so 73 students fewer than the previous year. The next page is an important page because this describes a little bit about where students might be in the elementary level, but not necessarily in our school system. So there were children who moved from different grade levels, children who are currently being homeschooled, children at St. Stephen's and other non-public schools. So I share that with you because this helps us keep a mind's eye on the fact that maybe some of the homeschool children will come back in September, depending upon New York State Department of Health guidance and people's comfort level with the pandemic, and hopefully that pandemic winding down next year. The next page is just a picture of high school enrollment since 2016, 2017. You can see that in the 2016-17 year, there were 981 students. And this school year, we're about 939, 940. And based upon the students that are enrolled in the middle school, you'll see that enrollment could be on its way down over the next few years. With respect to middle school, you can see that in 2016-17, there were 700 students. This year, about 650. And just looking at students in 5th grade, moving up to 6th grade, the change could be from 651 to 636, but perhaps a little bit higher if some of the students return from homeschooling or other areas. The next few years, though, it's important, for the board to see that enrollment based on the current numbers in 4th grade and 3rd grade could be as low as under 600 in the 2023-2024 school year based on current numbers. In Huth and Kegabyne together, grades 2 through 5, in 2016-17, there were 840 students. There was a bubble that you see the burst at the 2019-2020 school year, and then a sharp decline to the 2020-2021 year, and then a gradual increase, but still well below the 840 and 851 levels in the years coming. And then current elementary class size ratios, we've looked at this quite often. We have 20 teachers at Sidway in classroom, 17 at Huth, and 17 at Kegabyne, and class sizes ranging this year from 19 or 20, 21, and 21 again throughout our elementary schools. And then just broken down just a little bit more, you can see 54 classroom teachers, 1,114 students, average class size around 20 throughout the district. On page 16, you've seen this multiple times. This is the data that shows us the births that are attributed to Grand Island, looking back over time. And the arrow is the predicted number of kindergarten students who could enroll at Sidway at 220. That's really great news. If you look at this chart and you look at where it says 220, the next year it says 189 and the next year says 194. So you can see that obviously live births that are attributed each year to enrollment. The more that we have kids enroll under 200, obviously the smaller the enrollment will be in the future for our middle schools and high schools. So when we start to see numbers over 200, I think that's good news. And we'll have to look at this very carefully going into next year to see if that changes, particularly with new housing on Grand Island and new people moving to this area. For projected elementary class size ratios, you'll see that we're looking to have 21 teachers at Sidway, 18 at Huth, and 16 at Kegabyne. Remember, this year we have 20 at Sidway, 17 at Huth, and 17 at Kegabyne. The difference, obviously, is the greater number of students at Huth versus Kegabyne, a total predicted at 390 versus Kegabyne at 342. And I've highlighted in yellow the class sizes for 2nd grade at Huth, which currently are projected to be at 24. We will monitor that over the summer. We'll work with Max and his team, and if that starts to increase, we will communicate with the board and look to see if we need to add a teacher as early as August to keep an eye on that. But as you can see, other than the 2nd grade, the ratios are really good. From 20, we have one class at 19, or a group of students at 19, and ranging from 20 to 24. Any questions about projected elementary enrollment? Secondary enrollment, you can see that we are looking at taking in 242 students in 6th grade. This is this year. We're looking at current secondary enrollment, so this is this year. So we have 10 classroom teachers in 6th grade with class sizes of 24. And we're recommending on the next slide to have 9 teachers at the middle school with class sizes of 21. And obviously you'll see that the number of students coming into 6th grade decreases from 242 to just about 200. We do anticipate students coming back to the middle school, maybe from parochial schools or from being homeschooled. So we're accounting for growth throughout the summer to have those kids spread out over 9 teachers. Any questions about this? As you know, we've had some retirements. We've had special education and music and elementary physical education, elementary principal and secondary assistant principal. This budget recommends that we replace all of those retired from our district. And as you can see, the proposed budget is at $67,118,207. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Ruby to talk about the rest of this budget presentation.
I'm fine if you want to keep talking. So we are going to go through where we stand currently with the draft budget. I did want to do a recap of what has happened thus far. The state funding total is $29.5 billion, which is a $3 billion increase or 11.3%. It's pretty hefty. This provides for a $1.4 billion increase in foundation aid. And it seems that there is a commitment to a 3-year foundation aid phase-in. If the board remembers, I believe it was last year, during budget time, we actually went through the foundation aid formula in a workshop, the fund formula we went through. And then we showed you in the end how much we were really getting in comparison to if the formula ran, how much we were owed. So they are hoping to, within a 3-year period, make all districts whole of what they are owed in foundation aid. There was a lot of back and forth in reference to the federal aid being received that it would not supplant the state aid commitment to school districts. That has taken place. It has not supplanted, it's a supplement. And then it goes through some things in reference to the different federal programs, because there's 2. So the funding is said to be available for multiple years. It is to help schools reopen in person for instruction, address learning loss, and respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs due to what has occurred due to COVID-19. I'm not going to read every word on here, but I think another important key thing to mention is a component about broadband services being provided and making sure that students and families that receive certain type of assistance are eligible and receiving exemptions and affordable benefits for utility to make sure they have internet connection for their children. This next slide goes into each area of the federal funds a bit more. So ASUR and GER were the first 2 components that we received in our current budget year. If you remember, there was a reduction in state aid. It was backfilled with federal funds, and that was around $400,000. But the ASUR 2, or the CRRSA Act, which was enacted in December of 2020, our allocation is the $2.66 million you see here. And it is said to be available through September 30th of 2022. That does not include a 12-month, they call it a tiding period, which usually extends you out for an additional 12 months, but that has to be approved. So we're waiting to find out that for not only the ASUR 2, but the American Rescue Plan. It is similar to the funds we received, the allowance of use for these funds that we received the first time around, which included hiring new staff and avoiding layoffs. And then it also deals with expenses, including learning loss, prepare schools for reopening. Our focus with our initial funds that we received for the current school year was just staffing. Moving forward with ASUR 2 and the ARP, there is a lot more that goes into that. And we're still waiting a lot more guidance on this too. In reference to the American Rescue Plan, that was just enacted last month. The allocation is $2.7 million, And right now we know that we have availability to those funds through September 30th of 2023. That could be extended for a year. But there are some more rules and regulations in reference to these funds. There is something in the language that says no less than 20% of the funds have to address learning loss, and that's no less than. So there, you can always go higher than that. This gives you some of the information in reference to learning loss, as well as some of the things they've mentioned, which is summer learning, enrichment, extended day and extended school year programs. Some of the same allowances occur as have occurred in the past with the grant pertaining to COVID expenses, but there are going to be a lot more stipulations there. Two things that we thought was very important to mention is that districts are required by July 1st to post on their website, that should say plans, for the use of the aid, which will prioritize spending on non-reoccurring expenses for safe return to in-person instruction. So I know Dr. Graham has already started having meetings with us on what does that look like, what is our game plan, so we can comply with that July 1st deadline. And the budget language right now includes a requirement for school districts to reserve at least half of their allocation and spend 12.5% of their allocation in each year. The way the language expresses that, though, it goes out to 2024/25. So they're making some assumptions in there that could change that 12.5% to a higher percentage if we're not able to push out that far. There is a lot more to come in reference to allowances versus disallowances when it comes to the federal funds. So as I know more, I will provide more. Are there any questions just based on what I've said about federal funds? And I can't see you if you're doing anything.
No, I just want to emphasize what Ruby was saying. We had a wonderful meeting with our administrators today talking about the American Rescue Plan and how we need to really put together our best foot forward to address learning loss, to address enrichment, to address opportunities for students to have extended day after school or before school, connections with teachers and counselors and social workers. So our principals are now charged with the task of working with their teachers to identify ideas, brainstorming suggestions, and how to utilize these dollars to support our students in the community. So we really had an excellent meeting today. We will continue to report to the board some of these ideas and keep you up to date on some of the exciting, but it's important that Ruby said non-reoccurring expenses. You may find us making recommendations to hire part-time teachers as opposed to full-time probationary teachers, because those are yearly appointments and we can target academic intervention in buildings for kids who have experienced tremendous learning loss. So we're going to have lots of ideas to share with the board, and we had our first meeting today. So thank you, Ruby.
Not a problem. This gives a snapshot of where we currently stand in reference to the executive proposal, which came out on April 6th. They were a little late this year, but you know, they did give us the information, so we can't be mad about that. Foundation aid, there was an increase, as I mentioned before. So we received an additional $604,000 in foundation aid. Another thing to draw your attention to is the services aid was rejected. That was taking the different expense-driven aid areas and lumping them together, which would really mean that you weren't getting aid based on what you spent year over year. It would just be based on whatever formula they created. So that was rejected. Universal pre-kindergarten is on here. You will see quite a hefty increase there. They are increasing the funding for a lot of school districts. Some districts, this is the first time they've ever even seen UPK funds. and it is to assist with implementing full-day program funding. We are still awaiting some additional guidelines in reference to that, as well as understanding if they're going to, like, if 478,000 is our year-over-year receivance of funds, or if that's a one-time thing to kind of help us put something in place and that could drop off in the future. So there's still a lot of questions surrounding that. If you look on here, our UPK has been around almost 111,000 for years. So usually that's the solid amount you're going to receive each year. So it'd be great if they could say you're going to receive $478,000 in federal funds every year, but there's still a lot of questions there. You
And
will.
Ruby,
Okay.
I just want to add, I'm so glad that you're talking about this. Denise and I also talked about this, and we're also with you awaiting further guidance. But even if these dollars don't return to the budget next year, we believe we should do something with the dollars. And even if it's just a one-year opportunity for our community to send their 4-year-old to school full day, even if it's just for 1 year, we should be able to use those dollars, and only those dollars, contributed to that concept. And in addition, there's a component to this, to our UPK grant every year, where we have to attribute 10%, I believe, to our neighboring UPK site, which is off campus. And so they would also benefit, and the students there would benefit as well. So it's really good news, even if it only is for 1 year. It should be a nice opportunity to do something special for our kids. And of course, if those dollars go back to 110,000 in the next year, when we put out our registration process for UPK, then it's just a lot of it's for a half-day program as opposed to a full-day program. Denise, is there anything else, to think about with this UPK change, or did we cover it?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, it's great news. Like you said, even if it ends up only being 1 year, that's a good number of kiddos that we can get in. Anytime we can expand the UPK is good for our community. I know we've talked about that at board meetings for a number of years. So this is exciting news for our little ones.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Ruby.
Okay.
So
We have a question. 1 second. Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
so will that mean we'll be able to increase the number of students who can come also this coming year, or no?
So we service 36, I think it's 36. No, we service 36 kids in 2 half-day sessions. So Denise and myself and Ruby will look at the possibility of having 2 UPK classrooms that address 36 kids again, but in a full-day setting. So we just have to crunch the numbers and see if it works, to have 2 teachers' salaries and 2 teacher aide salaries attributed to that program. Thank you.
Okay. Another thing, and I just bring this for a full circle thought. Another thing with doing full day UPK, there's things that we would take into consideration that we may not have before. Are those children getting on buses? Clearly, if they're here all day, they get to eat lunch. So it's working those pieces in as well. It will be a joint effort, and we're going to do all we can to provide full day for as many children as we can. But there are multiple pieces that are impacted, and also what does that look like next year in a all kids are back environment. So I think my brain is always thinking that way, but I do like to just bring everything full circle of all the things that have to be taken into consideration.
I have a question about that as well. For the full day, if you had 36 students and another 36 students full day, so if you had 72 full day versus just the 36, what I thought I heard Dr. Graham say is that right now we have 36 in the morning and 36 in the afternoon, and we would just have 36. No, we would just, we have 18, I'm sorry.
I may misspoke, yes, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have 18 in the morning and 18 in the afternoon is what we currently have. And so it's 36 students total for the day right now for pre-K. So are we looking at having just the one classroom of then 18 and another classroom of 18 full day. So we would still have 36 spots, but it would be full day for those pre-K students.
Yeah, ideally, we would hope to be able to offer 2 full-day classrooms of 18 in each class.
Okay.
And then also increase the contribution to Kiddos Corner, because we're required to do that.
Okay.
So that they may also choose to help more kids that way, have, a subsidy to the tuition at Kiddos Corner. But ultimately, we do have a lot of number crunching to do, full-time teachers in both classrooms, full-time assistants in both classrooms, the possibility of transportation or maybe furniture or supplies that we need to purchase.
So my question was the space. Would we have the space, would we be able to find the space for the 2 classrooms that both be on site or?
Yep.
So 2?
So Denise and I did talk about space. She's going to analyze the space that she has. We're anticipating more kids and another classroom teacher at Sidway just for K and 1. So that is a factor in her analysis. And then, we obviously have one classroom attributed to the current UPK. And if Denise thinks she can house a second classroom, that would be great. If she couldn't, we wouldn't be opposed to having a second classroom at youth or at Kettevine. Even though it's not a primary school, it would still be run by a primary school teacher. So those are just some kind of ideas in the back of our mind if we don't have enough space at Sidway.
Thank you.
Okay. The next couple of areas on here are expense-driven aid areas. So you have BOCES, high cost, private access. You'll see not much has changed from what was forecasted to the executive. One thing I did want to bring your attention to is you will see the pandemic adjustment / local funding adjustment is non-applicable because the approved budget did not supplant. It's supplemented, so we received those funds separately. And the STAR payment, which was mentioned as something that could possibly be a loss in the future, was also rejected. And then you'll see our building aid number, and you'll see the total aid change, which is shown to be $970,322. I always like to make sure it is known. UPK, though it comes out on your state aid run, it is a grant. It is handled through the F fund. So though you see $970,000 of an increase, the true increase is about $600,000 because that has to be taken out. Does that make sense to everyone?
Ruby, could you just make sure the board and the community understands what rejected means?
Sure. That was what happened to his proposal when it was reviewed. So service aid was initially proposed to take place instead of receiving your expense-driven aids. It would all be lumped into $1 amount, and then it would increase each year based on whatever percentage was decided on by the state. That was rejected, meaning that is not going forth. We do have our service aids. That's the highlighted areas you see here. And then the STAR payment in the reference to rejected was included on the state aid runs as an increase to state aid, but that is not true. STAR payment pertains to your tax levy, so that was rejected and is non-applicable. So it's not a loss of funds.
Right. And Ruby,
that way, it's not a loss of funds. It was something that was new and proposed this year, which actually made it seem that districts were receiving more state aid than they had in the past, which was not true. STAR has always been a component for school districts. It just pertains to your tax levy, not to your state aid run.
okay, and just to dovetail a little bit, the governor made these proposals, and then the Senate and the Assembly rejected them, and then the governor accepted the rejections and signed off on the budget. So just in case people are wondering, how that becomes rejected, that's how it became rejected.
This next slide shows the real property tax levy amount of 36.289. It also shows state aid. That is a flow over from the last chart. You will see here that the adjustments in and out are non-applicable for the upcoming school year. That was part of the, it has to supplement, not supplant component. You will see, did you say something, Dr. Graham?
No, you're good.
Okay. You will see here the state building aid amount, which looks different from the last slide. The reason why that looks different is you have to submit final cost reports to drive your increase in building aid. So because those final cost reports will not be submitted for another couple of months, the state does not take that into account because they don't have the final cost reports. But as long as they're submitted timely, you will receive your aid due based on the submission date. So we take that into consideration because we have to make a debt service payment and we know that aid is going to come in. Sales tax is a slight decrease. The last two meetings I had referenced that they were expressing that they were lowering the sales tax about 20,000 this year and an additional 20,000 next year. So I'm still taking that into account because we have not heard anything different. Dr. Graham, have you heard anything different in reference to that?
No, this is accurate.
Okay. And one thing I did want to mention here, prior, I think it was about 1.5 million reference for BOCES. I did have a conversation with BOCES to kind of figure out why we had the jump in BOCES aid and to make sure and cross-check that we were really going to receive that increase. And we are, because it deals with our BOCES capital component. That's where it's taken into consideration. So I did correct that. So you will see an increase in the amount of state aid for BOCES there. And then the only other adjustment on here is reserve for debt. And that deals with our construction and how we are going to use those funds to pay down debt service to free up funds for the capital project, as we've talked about. I believe it's been at least the last 2 years in reference to the current capital project. Are there any questions on this slide? This goes through major expenditures. In all honesty, nothing has changed on this slide, so I'll run through it just quickly. You have the contractual obligations for salaries increase of 1.68%, health insurance / benefits increases, ERS, TRS, FICA, as well as retirement benefits, taking into consideration all of the retirements that are happening for this upcoming school year. You will see workers' compensation insurance slightly increasing here. BOCES, there is a capital project that is beginning. I've expressed before, but I will say it again. BOCES does not have the same borrowing rights as school districts are allowed to do. So instead of having the ability to pay over a 15 or a 20-year period, they have a 3-year period, and the cost for the capital project is spread out to its districts. So since we are part of Erie 1 BOCES, we have a financial obligation in that. You also have debt service, which deals with past capital projects as well as the current capital project, which we will be closing out, and then a slight increase for gasoline for transportation. I'm going to go on to the next slide. This provides an overview breakdown, so it's really department area by department area. It really is covering a lot of this is what I've already mentioned. You will see the BOCES service program cost. Next one. You will see some COVID supplies increases and movements. And then you'll see the big area is our debt service. So that shows you the ins and outs for principal and interest payments, as well as the band premium and the band interest, which is bond anticipated note. That is currently what we are in until we switch over to bonds. And then at the bottom, you will see the revenue side. So you will see the total amount of state aid increase, the tax levy increase, and any other revenue areas increase in general fund. You do see a budget gap here. It was difficult to kind of explain this in a presentation just on paper. So as we go through, I will explain how there is a gap here and then how it closes moving forward. But I do want to show everything in its totality so you understand. Dr. Graham, are you going to take this section?
Yes, thank you, Ruby. So going on to page 32, you'll see that over the course of the budget development, there have been requests that have been moved to the 2022 and beyond column for future consideration and some that are remaining. At the high school, the remaining request for the board's consideration is a 0.5 business teacher to assist the high school with the new business and finance academy, as well as other duties associated with those electives. You can see everything else has been moved to future consideration. For the board's consideration, the only thing remaining at the middle school is a stipend for the Where Everybody Belongs advisorship that is co-advised at the middle school. So we're asking the board to consider that. Moving on, you'll see that the second grade teacher or the extra teacher at Heath has already been handled through internal coverage. And again, we'll be keeping track of enrollment throughout the summer for the class sizes that are at 24 right now at second grade. The community relations specialist, this is a reduction from BOCE's line that will allow us to hire a part-time community relations specialist. Instead of sending the $24,000 to BOCE's, use it here in-house and post for a community relations specialist. So it's a reduction in the BOCE's code, but then has us hiring a part-time community relations specialist. The Eagle Island stipend remained the same at $2,000. The request for the Assistant Superintendent of Administrative Services remains for the board's consideration. The teacher on special assignment would not be a budgetary increase. Right now, we're saying it's still under review, but it won't be attributed to the budget because it can be attributed to federal Title II funds in the future if we deem it necessary to come back to the board and ask to add that, but it would not impact the budget. And the summer literacy, you can see it's remaining, but there's no dollar value because the dollars that we were going to ask the board to put in the budget for summer school can be taken care of right with these new federal funds. So we should be able to pay for all of our summer literacy, summer programs, everything from grades K through 12 with those new federal dollars. Any questions about this page? So moving on, many of the items, as you see, have been moved to future considerations. Remaining here, you'll see the building and grounds laborer and the part-time cleaner remaining for the board's consideration. Today, we had a wonderful opportunity to go out and see the soon-to-be opening of the multi-sports complex. If you had a chance to see how much work goes into setting up for softball and baseball there, the Buildings and Grounds Department will be able to utilize that new laborer position. And of course, the more cleaners we have in our schools, the better off we are, particularly during the pandemic. In this presentation, we're asking the board to allow us to continue with the small capital outlay projects. I know that one of the ideas is addressing new security entryways for every classroom, making them digital. So that could be something we would consider for a small capital outlay project. We have some other ideas too, Ruby, but that may be the number one idea to enhance security throughout the school system. And basically over time, if there was an intruder and we did a one-button lockdown in our school district, every door would be automatically locked at the same time. So it's a pretty significant idea. Using a small capital outlay project to build that over time could be pretty exciting for the district in the sense of security. And we may even qualify for bullet aid to do more above and beyond the 100,000 bullet aid through our Assembly and our Senate representatives. So those are just some ideas for future consideration. I see that there are some things here, Ruby, like the K-12 touch TV replacement plan that's still under review and could use federal funds. The
Food
Ruby,
service.
could you
You want
speak
me
to?
to talk about this one?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So the food service department and IT, at least the last 2 years, so it's probably longer than that they've been mentioning it to me, but over the last 2 years have been talking about the system issues they are having with the communication between one area and another. So initially, we were looking at the tie-in into Infinite Campus for food service, so everything flowed together. Through some review and also some investigations with other school districts of what was working and what was not, they came up with a decision to make a system change so it impacts the back end, but not the front end of what parents have been using to make payments or how it functions for students when it comes to typing in their ID code, but just so it works systemically on the back better, as well as allowing the opportunity for electronic applications. So instead of us sending out the paper applications every year to get people to complete them and mail them back, you would actually be able to do it right online, which we think will increase our return rate of food applications, whether it's a student qualifying or not. Originally, they were asking for about 20,000. Through the work of Robin Kwiatek and Patrick Smith, they were able to move some things around and implement the program this year, and the company was willing to do it at a highly discounted rate. And because there is already costs that we incur every year for our food service system, next year we would just shift the funds that the cafeteria was paying for their current program to the new program. But this is also a C fund expense. I did want to reference that as well. So it's a C fund component, but they're just going to shift the dollars from one area to another. So I do want to thank them for their research, as well as working with the company to see if there were any discounts or ways to save the district money now and in the future.
Very good. Okay. As you can see, security cameras remain for the board's consideration in this budget presentation. Anytime that we can add cameras and take off older cameras from our online, digital security system is always a good thing for the district. And we experienced how important those cameras are at Huth when we have a situation. Joe is here who helped investigate that. And it was really great to see how those cameras were super helpful in that investigation. So moving on to other areas, of course, we will always be looking at ways to add health insurance if need be, but as far as putting it in the budget now, we've moved that to future consideration. We've also moved the concept of adding a school resource officer for the value of a 1 FTE, and we moved that for future consideration. The transfer to food service is important, and we hope that the board will consider that. And the community has spoken several times about adding modified soccer, so that remains in the budget presentation tonight for the board's consideration. Any questions about this slide? Very good. And then next, as far as different capital outlay plans, we talked about a classroom door card access enhancement to all of our classroom doors. Of course, the $100,000 capital outlay project may not be enough to do every classroom door, but I did mention that if we move ahead with this plan, we would consider asking for bullet aid from our Assembly and our Senate representative. Other examples of small capital outlay projects that can be done, whether it's next year or beyond, are heating and circulation controls, hallway doors that are needed to be replaced, work on our high school roof, paving elementary buildings, parking lots and so forth. The fuel island is always in need of enhancements. And then, Ruby, I have no idea what MSRT 18N is.
To be honest, I didn't know either. Jim
Right.
Rocker gave us a master list.
Ask Jim what that is. Is Jim Rouser with us?
It's a rooftop unit. It's what we use to actually heat and cool the sections of the middle school. So middle school rooftop unit.
Oh,
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. And Jim, did I do a bad job in explaining what classroom door card access is? Can you just enhance my explanation of that?
Sure. Actually, I thought you did very well. It's actually what we use to swipe into all of our areas. We have our ID that lets us into certain areas of the building. And what we want to do is probably start in elementary buildings and start doing every classroom door. It would help with our one button. It would also help with keys are expensive and we do lose them. And when you lose a master key to a building, you can't really rekey a building, but you can disable a card. So I thought you did a good job, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Could you just, since I have you online, can you just share with the board how many buildings now are one button lockdown ready?
So all of our elementary buildings have that system in place. We have a design ready for the high school, middle school. Just waiting to get through this budget to see if we can have some fun.
And Jim, I know the board is already aware, but could you share with the board and the community how you and Josh Nichols and your entire team have been able to do this as opposed to us going out and hiring a vendor to do this?
So we did use a vendor that we already use. We're using our building controls. What we do, our building controls that monitors all our heating and cooling of our buildings. And we're using that as our main system through our S2 system, which is that swipe card system we just talked about, and our alarm system. Basically what happens is it's very simple. It's via wire. You hit a button, sets the alarm off, locks all the doors, and sends an email and a text message to the principals and the superintendent, myself, that we actually have a problem.
Great, thank you very much. So with the board's consideration, we would like to continue building into this capital outlay plan. It allows us to set aside dollars that we get aid back on. So we spend $100,000 and we get about $74,000 back, Ruby?
yes, I'll go with that number.
All right. Thank you. Ruby, can you talk about the bus proposition?
Sure. This bus proposition is the same one you've seen at the last two meetings. It deals with 4 65 passenger buses, a 29 passenger bus, as well as the Chevy truck Suburban. This is on here. The current Suburban is, I will say, very rusted underneath. It needs to be replaced. We pushed it off for a couple of years. So she is doing a little shifting here on what her request normally would have been to make sure that is included in here. And then you will also see a Ford F-350 on here and a Ford Transit 150 wagon. Usually we ask for 2 Ford F-350s, but we do need to replace the van that was totaled a couple of years ago, just based on the needs of the items going from one location to another. I do know at one point we've even used a delivery service to get some things here that we were not able to just go pick up because we didn't have the vehicle. So those are all of the requests, and it's always important to identify what budget year this will first impact, and that will be the 2022-23 school year. So that's about a $25,000 change from the prior school year. Any questions here? So this just takes everything that we have discussed tonight in reference to state aid and building aid, and all of our revenue sources, and all of our expense areas, and sums it up. So what you will see here is a total expense, and then you will see an anticipated tax levy amount, and then you will see a tax levy maximum amount. So if you remember from, I don't know, I'd say maybe 10 slides ago, there was a budget gap of 710,734. And then taking in the request of what was mentioned a couple slides ago, that brings us to 1,000,001. What I have shown here is a federal aid shift. So what would happen is some of the funds in areas of expenses, I would shift from the general fund to the federal aid side. I think that's another thing to mention. The first round of funds that we received, even though it came from the federal government, it was general fund money. We accounted for it in the A fund. These two slots of money that we are receiving is not being handled that way. It's federal funds, so they will be handled through the F fund. So we would have to shift that expense. And once that expense is shifted, our total general fund expense would be 67,118,207. I know that sounds a little confusing on paper for some people, but it is really a paper thing in what fund you account for it. And we have to do it correctly because the voters are voting on the general fund. So I want to make sure that was taken into consideration properly. Are there questions there? So some things that we wanted to mention because we mentioned a shift. There are some considerations. Clearly the one I just mentioned was closing our budget gap. It would cover salaries and other allowable expenses. I kind of leave that vague because I'm still waiting for guidance and direction on what is going to be fully allowable, but I do have some areas earmarked. So once I know that information, hopefully by the end of April, I'll know which money is going where. You also have, we talked about summer school programs. I know Dr. Graham has talked about summer enrichment and after school enrichment, extended school year programs, any technology replacement, infrastructure, and there is a possibility of covering prior COVID expenses that were not budgeted for. We will know more as more guidance comes out, but this is just going based on what has been allowed with the first allowance of ASSER funds that came out. So it's that's kind of what's driving our thought process for these two additional allowances of federal fund utilization. Any questions here?
So, just one quick question. I know you guys just met for the first time today, I believe, but the summer enrichment and after school enrichment, is that strictly academic? Are you thinking that, or is it?
No.
Any ideas?
Yeah, our first blush and taking a look at enrichment might be everything from music, band, orchestra, opportunities for kids to get direct instruction in those areas this summer immediately. So one of the things that I did was I reached out to Amy Boutte, who is in charge of our community education program. She sent me all of the courses that she was hoping to offer our students this summer. Many of them are in the fine arts area as well as physical education area or sports and so on. So we think we could offer the community a significant discount on community education opportunities based on the federal dollars and falling under enrichment. Above and beyond that, we're asking the principals to reach out to their teachers to see if there's any other summer enrichment or summer remediation that we could do this summer and particularly in September. So those federal dollars really end up benefiting our students, but also our parents and our taxpayers, because we may be able to significantly decrease payments for opportunities for kids to be part of a summer camp here that we run through our school system.
really open up to the opportunity that more kids that would maybe not have that opportunity.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's
So that
absolutely
sounds
correct.
great. I'm excited about
Yeah, and it's just something, obviously, once this budget came out, we started thinking, what are the best ways that we can impact our kids immediately? So that's definitely, and the fact that we can offer enrichment is remarkable. And I do want to stress the social emotional piece and the counseling. That is a high priority. So when our principals reach out to their teachers, counselors, and social workers and psychologists this week, in the days ahead, to suggest summer opportunities or after school opportunities for kids or any other opportunities, all three of those things in categories of summer, after school or before school, and learning loss. Those are the three big categories that we're working with. We should be able to enhance all of our all of the students who need that type of enhancement immediately in September, if not this summer.
Another thing I would say in reference to the component that Dr. Graham just mentioned is this past year, well, actually, when COVID first occurred and schools were closed, so back in March of last year, there was flexibility offered when it came to federal funds and what they could be used for. I think that is going to carry forward in reference to Title I, Title II, and Title IV to make sure school districts are able to utilize as much as possible for social and emotional needs. I will let you know more information when it comes to federal funds on all areas as we know more, but that was something that I did see. They made a quick change to allow districts to use funds a little creatively to assist students as much as possible, as well as faculty and staff.
So that after school enrichment, I'm assuming that would be in the fall, then you have on here after school enrichment.
That's correct.
What might those opportunities look like? Could you give just an example or two of what, maybe some brainstorming or thoughts for enrichment during the school year?
Yeah. So the goal today when we met with our principals was asking them to put a plan in place to reach out to our teacher professionals. Everything from fine arts to mental health to classroom teachers. Have those teachers put together a proposal. They'll go back to the principals for review and then come up to the district office for final consideration. So it's really opportunities that are endless, I guess. So if a counselor or a social worker or a psychologist want to come together as a team and do something unique and special for kids, they will have that flexibility as long as the principal approves that. So we haven't said it has to be X, Y, or Z yet. We really want to reach out and have it be a collaborative process and listen to what our professional teachers think would be helpful for kids.
These titles outside of Close the Budget Gap and Cover Prior really come from things that have been mentioned directly from the information that's being pushed out from the DISCUS, from the Association of School Business Officials, from BOCES, based on their overarching review. As more is known, because I'm assuming they're going to hone in on what they find or deem acceptable versus not acceptable, we'll be able to provide more. But these are just their key terms that were used. So we haven't had a full deep dive, but I do know that I know we have some great administrators. We have wonderful teachers that are really into just helping students. So I know we'll get as creative as we are allowed to utilize the funds and definitely help our students. Anything else on this one?
I'll just add one more thing, and please, this is just an idea, and just don't hold me to it.
Wait, is this an idea you've already told me, or is this?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Right. Ruby is, she's awesome. Yes, I have already told you this idea, Ruby. But, you know, we help kids every day with extended day through Just for Kids, through programs where kids are after school until 6 o'clock waiting for their parents to come out of work. There may be an opportunity to partner with entities like that to offer extra support for kids. So I did reach out to Christina Klee to ask her if she had any ideas, and she already has something that she does in other districts, and she's going to share that with me for consideration as well. So a child that's in, say, the Just for Kids after school program could get targeted tutoring through these federal funds.
Be very creative, told you. Very creative.
Now, Ruby, I know you had mentioned before the total amount that we had for the COVID-related expenses that are on here. And with the last package that we had, do you have any idea how much is left still to cover out of that? I know you've mentioned the dollar amount, we've talked about the dollar amount before, and I don't know if you have that figure. I don't need to.
Are you talking the COVID related expenses that was presented a couple months ago?
Yes. Yeah. Did we?
I did not use any federal funds to cover the COVID related funds that came out of the Capitol, or the COVID related funds that came from the general fund. There, in my mind, there are a couple of things to remember on a reporting aspect. Number one, I didn't want to account for any of that until I got final word that says, this is how you account for prior expenses, and yes, you can use the funds for that. I'm always, I want to see it on paper from them, not to say I don't trust people, but when it comes to money, I get a little iffy. So that was not taken into account till the final language is provided. Also, I have to see what the grant application process is. And we also have to remember that we have been working to see if we can receive FEMA reimbursement. And the county also gave us a pot of money as well to use towards COVID. So you can't double and triple account for the same areas. So I'm working on my end just to look over record keeping, and then I will work with the auditors when we finish up this year's audit, before that is even a thing where funds would move. So that's not included, actually.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? So this just provides another snapshot view of fund balance, where it stood as of March 31st of 2021, and then where we anticipate it finishing off for this school year. So you see the capital reserve, those funds are going to be used towards the 24 million. Debt service is going down because those funds are paying off current debt to free up funds to assist with the capital project. The employee benefit accrued liability goes towards the retired employee benefits if needed. We use about $350,000 a year. And then you see some areas where it's either remaining, hopefully remaining or increasing, or becoming a place where we can begin to fund if our fund balance allows. TRS is definitely going to be something important that we start funding, as well as a self-funded health insurance reserve, but the funds have to be available for that to occur. And then unassigned down here at the bottom is just based on the 4% of your current year's budget of what is allowed. So that's me making an assumption that we're at 4%. Hopefully it's more than that, but once the audit occurs, we'll know more. This next slide goes through the tax cap calculation. Again, I am not going to walk piece by piece through the calculation, but I think there are a couple of things that are important to note. You will see here that the 21-22 levy limit is $36,289,062. which is a $1.1 million increase, which turns out to be the 3.21% allowable increase. I do want to reference that the 3.21% is within the tax cap requirements, so we're not exceeding the levy. We do not need a supermajority. But two things to note here is you will see down at the bottom 419,000 increase, which is based on your tax-based growth factor and your allowable levy growth factor. Those are both growth factors that are provided to us by, it is by the, I want to say the Department of Taxation that information comes from, and that's actually automatically inputted into your formula that cannot be changed. They do the changing of that. And then the next component here is a $709,000 increase in reference to the capital tax levy, which is your exclusion area. And I wanted to outline what is included there, which was our 2019 approved capital project, any prior approved capital projects which had taxpayer impact, and the purchases of buses will be included with that component of the calculation, as well as the June 2019 approved BOCES capital project. So there are multiple things that make that up, but it is all in the area of capital and debt. Are there any questions here? This goes into the tax rate. So you will see here that the estimated rate for 21-22 is $20.41 per $1,000 assessed value of a home, which is a 63 cents increase, which is the 3.21%. At the bottom, I did add a couple of just additional details. One, this is based on the 2020-21 property assessment. The rates will not be set until the board does an approval. I believe it's always the very end of July or the first meeting in August. The board approves the rates based on the information that we receive from the town. Another thing to mention here, the estimated 2020-2021 was $20.09, which was for last year would have been a 44-cent increase. But when the actual numbers came in, it was $19.78, which was only a 13-cent increase. Things that impact this possible rate versus the actual rate is where your assessed values come in. And I do believe that we are expecting a property reassessment, or it has actually already occurred for Grand Island for the upcoming year. And you also have a tax-based growth factor, which will impact the overall assessed value of Grand Island. So there are things that are kind of fluent that can have an impact on the rate, which can positively impact us as the assessed value goes up. The spread is distributed differently. Does that make sense to everyone? Are there questions? Okay. Things to note from here is the board does have the opportunity to adopt the budget tonight if they so choose. If we would like additional time, the budget adoption mandatory date is April 20th, which is our next board meeting, which I believe we also have a component of a BOCES vote that has to occur by the board. After that, we then have our May 10th public hearing for the budget, and then the actual vote date is May 18th. And from my knowledge, I do not believe there is any changes to that. I think it's in person, but Jude will know more on that. Questions?
Anyone have any questions? Did anyone want to make a motion to adopt the budget this evening? Or a motion? Any second?
No, we still have a gap.
No, it's a balanced budget.
Ruby, there was a question, do we still have a gap?
The component that was considered a gap is going to be closed based on the federal funds. I do have a spreadsheet, so if the board would like to see that, I can provide it, of what my assumptions are of the allowable areas of a closed gap. I know the areas that will be allowed thus far based on the language and in general read would be anything that makes sure layoffs do not occur. So I know I can do salary increase. Anything pertaining to summer programs, which cover some special education costs, ESL costs, and current summer programs, and what we are estimating for the elementary level. So I've started creating that list of things that we have already taken into consideration for the upcoming year. Another item that sticks out to me is there was a request in the business area for $25,000 to cover COVID expenses. That would be a federal component instead of a general fund component. So it's shifting from one area to another, but it is a closed gap budget in the total of $67,118,207.
I'm just, so 67,118,207, that's the number you're talking about?
Yeah, 67,118,207 is a closed gap. The reason why you did see on what I believe is, I'm just going through mine very quickly. The reason why on slide 30 you see a gap there is because technically I could not use federal funds in the general fund budget. They're two different funding sources, so I have to account for that transparently. And that was the only way to do it transparently, was to show, hey, in general fund, we're short here, but this is how we can cover it. So that amount was deducted and is pushed into the federal side. It's I don't want to say it's a nightmare. It's interesting, but in the end, when it comes to all accounting purposes and reporting purposes, it is better that it is being funded and accounted for in a separate fund. It's just cleaner that way, especially with the total allocation being around 5.3 million and it being a multi-year utilization. And as I'm able to show it more, I'm definitely willing to share that information with the board. And anything that goes to the board or board meetings is also for the public. Right now, it's just on paper. Go ahead.
So everything on 32 and 33 that are noted as under review, all right, are those part of the budget now? Is that what's being suggested?
That is part of the total, unless there are adjustments that are missing.
It's we're saying now that it's not on the review anymore. Is that what we're saying? If we accept this budget?
Well, no, it's under review for 2022 and beyond. If there's a check mark in that column, and if there's a check mark for this year, and it says under review, that means it's for this year. Though some are not for this year. It's there for review.
Understood, but
Oh, okay.
everything in furniture request, right? The 143 on page 32, right?
Mhm.
And the 391
The total request is a 391.
on 33, we're saying that we accept it.
If you vote on the budget as
If we go on it, yes.
So is that the recommendation of?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think Sue motioned. Joy, did you second, or did I hear a second? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 7-0 to adopt the budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to special education with Cheryl Cardone.
Good evening again. I have two quick items. If I could have a action on our CPSC and our CSC programming, please.
All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you.
Okay, we do not have anything under policy, so that brings us to the superintendent's report with Dr. Graham for COVID-19 update.
Thank you very much. Coming up on your screen is a presentation for the board and our community with respect to the new New York State Department of Health guidance that was released on Friday, April 9th, just around dinner time, I believe. And this presentation not only includes information about the updated guidance, but our plans to move forward. So the first thing that's important to share with the board and our community is that the New York State Department of Health is indicating that schools and districts may choose to reduce physical distancing to no less than 3 feet between students during the academic instruction. However, it goes on to say that school districts must follow CDC recommendations for physical distancing depending upon community transmission rates and the grade levels in our schools. Schools must also adhere to the exceptions where a minimum of 6 feet of distance must be maintained. For the board, you may remember in a few meetings ago, I did share with you what those CDC recommendations are, and this presentation will review them once more for all of us. According to the New York State Department of Health and the CDC, due to evidence that transmission risk ranges by age of the student, and the CDC recommends that physical distancing requirements differ by grade level with respect to that community transmission risk. Evidence, according to the New York State Department of Health, indicates that there is lower susceptibility and incidence of COVID-19 among younger children when compared to teenagers. So therefore, in-person instruction represents less risk of on-site transmission in elementary schools compared to middle and high schools. The CDC has developed 4 levels of indicators and thresholds for community transmission of COVID-19, and the New York State Department of Health is mandating that we follow these community transmission rates in our decisions. So the first level of the 4 are low, actually the first and second are low and moderate risk of transmission for elementary, middle, and high schools. They're indicating that if our county was designated as a low or moderate risk, we can maintain physical distancing of at least 3 feet between students in classrooms for all of our schools if our county is in the low or moderate risk of transmission range. If our county is in the substantial risk of transmission range, Elementary, middle, and high schools can still maintain physical distancing of at least 3 feet between students in classrooms. If the county is in high risk of transmission, elementary schools can maintain physical distancing of at least 3 feet between students. However, in middle and high schools, 3 feet between students in classroom is only recommended if students are cohorting. When schools cannot maintain cohorting, and that is when a group of students go from class to class together, middle and high schools must maintain physical distancing of at least 6 feet between students in classrooms.
Hey, Brian,
Yes,
is Erie County considered a high risk at this time?
it is, yes, Erie County is, and I'll definitely show that to everybody shortly. So, you're welcome. So this slide comes directly from the CDC guidance that was issued in March 19th. It indicates that high transmission, or the red zone, means that there are greater than 100 individuals testing positive over a 7-day period when compared to 100,000 persons in the county. If you go to the site that is sourced on this slide, the covid.cdc.gov and the rest of that website, it'll take you to this page on their website that shows you throughout the United States the community transmission rates color-coded by red, orange, yellow, and blue. As you choose in that site to look at Erie County, you can see that most of New York State and the counties in New York State are red. And of course, Erie County is in that red high transmission rate zone. And this data comes from the CDC website that compares the transmission rate from March 31st to April 6th. As we drill down a little bit further on the CDC website, you can see we're still looking at March 31st through April 6th. It indicates that over those 7 days, the transmission rate was 337 per 100,000. If we go back to the CDC website, to get out of the red zone, we need to be less than 100. So to be considered orange, it would be between 50 and 99. To be considered yellow, it would be 10 to 49, and to be considered blue, 0 to 9. But remember, blue, yellow, or orange would mean that all of our middle school and high school students could return to school 5 full days. But red means if we can't cohort those students, they must stay in hybrid. However, the high risk red zone allows us to bring back the elementary students for 5 full days. Okay, so clearly community transmission rates are now adopted by New York State Department of Health as recommended by the CDC. This slide just, if you notice on this slide, there are 2 bars on the left and right hand side above the graph that you can toggle yourself if you go to the website and change the date range. So where it says 7-day moving averages Erie County, New York, Tuesday, January 21st through April 6th, you can actually slide that button and just look at a month's view from Friday, March 5th to April 6th. And you can see it changes the graph, and you can see that gradual increase on that graph with respect to the increase in cases per 100,000 in Erie County. This is a slide that you saw last time we were together. Remember that we asked our parents and our community that we reminded them that we're committed to returning to full-time in-person instruction as soon as we can responsibly, safely, and legally do so. In order to assist with our planning, we asked the parents to indicate their choice and their preference for instructional model if we were able to return to full-time 5 days. You can see that there were 1,281 parents who responded, and 91.5% say yes, they would like to return to full-time 5 days, and 8.5% indicated that they would like to stay with the 100% remote model. The 1,281 parents who responded to this survey are connected to 2,100 of our students. So it's a significant return in information from our parent community. So with respect to our plans, it is my recommendation that Grand Island Elementary Schools be able to reduce the physical distancing to no less than 3 feet in each of our classrooms with a projected start date of Monday, April 26th. For our Grand Island secondary schools, the middle school and high school, we will be able to reduce physical distancing only when the community transmission rate falls to less than 100 of the total number of new cases per 100,000 people in Erie County over 7 days. As a result, we will remain hybrid at the secondary level until we can get out of that red zone and reduce the community transmission throughout Erie County. Anybody have any questions about this? Of course, we're going to continue to monitor, and actually members of our community or members of the board can also monitor this through that website that I've sourced on this presentation. With respect to special education and the guidance that we're receiving from the New York State Department of Health, as the board knows, in September, we brought back all of our life skill classes to attend 4 days. In October, we brought back our 811 classes and secondary E&L students to attend 4 days. In March of 2020, all of our self-contained and elementary co-teach students are attending for 4 days. In April, all of our elementary E&L students are now attending for 4 days. And this April, we are also exploring and reviewing the possibility of bringing all of our secondary co-teach students with individualized education plans to 4 days of instruction as well. Are there any questions about this slide? With respect to transportation, the new guidance from the New York State Department of Health indicates that we must develop protocols and procedures. Students must wear acceptable masks. To be honest with you, this has not been an issue here in Grand Island, and it continues. Our students are extremely compliant, so we're able to say confidently that we're doing this very well. Also, it says parties should maximize the distance between students and school buses. For example, seat children 1 per row and even skip rows. Remember, this isn't saying must, they're saying should, or we should consider it whenever possible. In our district, we will still encourage parents to drop off and pick up because we do have parents who love to do that. And then of course, is in an effort to keep our buses at or around 21 per bus, which means 1 child per seat unless they're with a sibling, and of course the siblings can sit together. So our goal is to try to be around 21 per bus. This slide indicates what, if on April 26th, when we bring back all of our elementary students, currently there are about 371 students at Sidway who come to school for in-person instruction. We use 18 buses for Sidway to transport the 371 students, and that already puts us at 21 per bus. So we're looking really good, 1 child per seat for Sidway. At Huth, you can see there are 376 kids who are participating in in-person instruction or the hybrid program. We have 15 buses for Huth and 15 buses for Kegelvine. That puts us at 23 per bus at Huth and 22 per bus at Kegelvine. This 376 number and the 352 number of students does not account for parents who drive and drop off or pick up. So I think we're looking really good to move forward with transportation.
Brian, that 21 number, does that take into consideration siblings that will be sitting together? I mean, could it be 22 if there was a household that had 2 kids that would sit together? And
Yeah, excellent question. We'll be able to know that granular information once Teresa and her team kind of put that together. But just using 18 buses, we're looking really good without parents dropping off. So it looks really great. Yeah. This is probably our biggest challenge, are the cafeterias. All although the New York State Department of Health is adopting the CDC guidance that says we can do 3 feet, they're saying we can't in the cafeterias. So we have to follow 6 feet of distance for all of our meals. And that may mean that we need to convert the elementary gymnasiums into extensions of our cafeteria spaces to allow for more distancing in our schools. I am very proud of our principals and our custodians and our food service department for what they've already done in the hybrid. This picture on the slide is, a picture of what Sidway looks like right now. But as excellent of a job that this is, we will probably still need to convert another space at Sidway so that kids can be 6 feet apart in the cafeterias. So that's going to require us from now until April 26th, perhaps, to purchase some furniture, to outfit a space like the fitness room or part of a gymnasium to make certain that kids are distant from each other at mealtime. And the third bullet here says we also may need to hire new cafeteria monitors to account for this other space. I won't know that until I work specifically with Denise and Max and Felicia to fully understand how they can use their cafeteria monitors now. I can tell you that at Huth and Kegabyne, we have at least 2 cafeteria spaces already. At Kegabyne, it's the normal cafeteria plus where the band room was made into a cafeteria this year. And at Huth, it's the normal cafeteria in the community room. So if we were to expand into a gymnasium space, it may mean that we need another cafeteria monitor in each of those spaces to monitor the children and make sure everybody's safe. This is good news for our music and performance departments. As you know, band and choir was required to keep kids 12 feet apart for musical rehearsals and ensemble rehearsals and concerts. This latest guidance allows us to bring them together to 6 feet of distance as opposed to 12 feet. And that is true for physical education too. Previously, kids had to be 12 feet apart when engaging in aerobic activity that results in heavy breathing, but now we can reduce that, according to this guidance, to 6 feet. Masks, of course, our children and their parents and our staff have been exceptional in following our mandatory face mask policy, and we will need to continue to do that to account for this new guidance. And any time that kids are in common areas, they still need to remember to be 6 feet apart from each other in auditoriums or gymnasiums and cafeterias and hallways. The New York State Department of Health makes reference to the CDC, which says physical barriers are no longer recommended by the CDC. With respect to us in Grand Island, we will continue to use barriers for the rest of the year. We think that it adds just a layer of protection, even though it's not required. We'll probably continue to use it at least until the remainder of the school year. Then we'll make some decisions about what that looks like in September. It's important too, we received a memo from the Erie County Department of Health regarding contact tracing. One of the possible negatives to going to 3 feet of physical distancing is it may end up requiring us to quarantine more children in the classroom than when we were in hybrid. So schools that change to 3 feet of spacing will be putting classmates, according to the Erie County Department of Health, in that close contact category and subjecting to quarantine if a case is identified in their classroom. So I share that with the board because we received that memo pretty much within about 24 hours from the Erie County Department of Health, and it's on their website as well. So, we will need to monitor this, very carefully and assist the Erie County Department of Health with contact tracing as appropriate, which we've already been doing. It just, well, I don't want to editorialize. So, But it's just something that we'll need to pay attention to, which could result in kids being quarantined.
Brian, is that, I might be answering this. That's students, not, the adults are still 6 foot, so that would not
Well,
impact.
no, I think it would be everybody in the classroom. That's my immediate understanding. So it could, we will work very closely with your county department of health to communicate, where the positive person was in relation to the other children. It just seems like the entire class could be quarantined.
Including the teacher.
Including the teacher. However, if teachers are fully vaccinated, that will be another layer, another factor and variable to discuss.
That class then would receive remote instruction, like 100% remote for the number of days that they're quarantined.
Yep, and of course, our teachers who have been quarantined, or when we had to go to 100% remote from November to December, we've already been able to accommodate that. So we should be able to transition to that smoothly, but the variable is the teacher vaccinated? What does that mean for the teacher versus the kids? So it's important for the board to know that starting on April 26th, elementary students participating in the 100% remote option their parents will need to commit to 100% remote for the remainder of the school year. This is very important because it's by April 26th, we should have a virtual remote teacher for kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade, all in place so that every child who's 100% remote will have their own teacher who will meet synchronously and virtually with them every day. So between now and April 26th, we will be posting for one more virtual teacher to encompass grades K through 5 so that we can be prepared on April 26th to accommodate all students, whether they're 100% remote or in person.
Can I ask you a question? So if the student has to quarantine, will they then join those 100% virtual students?
Now, it's going to depend on the number of kids that are close contact and
So
quarantined
I'm
in a
just saying
classroom.
just a kid, like say the kid has, their parents at home tested positive, so their kid now has to quarantine at home for 10 days.
So, right.
What will that student,
Yep.
the single classroom student
Right.
do?
Excellent question. So right now, the goal might be that they might join that grade level teacher for continued instruction until they're ready to come back. That would probably be plan A.
So kids might be and have different teachers depending upon what happens going forward, right? If you choose virtual going forward, you might have a different teacher than you're not.
Absolutely. If many of our 100% virtual students at the elementary already have a teacher. Sidway, there's a kindergarten teacher and a first grade teacher already working with their kids. That's not going to change. Okay. At Huth and Keggevine, we're going to have one virtual teacher for the second graders for Huth and Keggevine, one virtual teacher for the third graders at Huth and Keggevine, and so forth. So we're going to hire one more teacher to accommodate one of those grade levels, but yes, the 100% remote child starting April 26th may end up having a new teacher. May not, but may.
But picking up on what Nicole has said, so a student who is with a teacher in school for 5 days, right? Gets quarantined and now has to be remote for a while. Is that teacher who is now remote teaching a class able to work with the other teacher to make sure that that student who is out quarantined is moving along steadily with the class?
Yep. Excellent question. So of course we would hope that at first grade and at second grade and at third grade, our 100% virtual teacher is already in alignment with the in-person students and teachers. That has to be, very important for us to make sure that's happening. So that would allow perhaps the 100% virtual teacher to to absorb this other child who was quarantined, maybe as a result of a close contact in their community or their family, or the memorandum of agreement that the board approved tonight allows the district to ask for elementary teachers to live stream as well.
That would be nice because there's a lot of students that need a differentiation. And for those two teachers to communicate, it's going to be different.
So we have two options at our disposal for that. So moving on, our secondary students who are 100% remote, based on the memorandum of agreement that was approved tonight, all of our secondary teachers, grades 6 through 12, will be live streaming or live casting starting April 26th for not only kids who are hybrid virtual, but all of our 100% virtual kids will receive synchronous and virtual lessons every day through live casting. So as we wind down this presentation, some of the key changes for in-person instruction and the new modified plans prior to us making any change to reducing the physical distancing to less than 6 feet between students for academic instruction, decisions must be made with community input. Myself, as a responsible party, must include opportunities for feedback from parents, community members, teachers, staff, and of course, even the Erie County Department of Health. As part of this New York State Department of Health guidance, we are required to submit our modified plans to the Erie County Department of Health as well as the New York State Education Department. The Erie County Department of Health doesn't approve our plan, but we must submit our plan to them. And then this also indicates that the meeting must be held before any changes to the physical distancing in schools can be made. So our plan, besides modifying and posting online to the Erie County Department of Health and the State Education Department, our plan is to create and narrate these slides that I'm sharing with you tonight. I will make a video of these slides tomorrow and send it out to all of our stakeholders in our community and ask for feedback. So not only will there be a video of these slides going out to all of our stakeholders, but there will be an accompanying survey to gather feedback from all of our stakeholders, community members, teachers, administrators, parents, and so forth, and students. From there,
Just one quick question, I know you're gonna narrate it, which is awesome, but will they also have access to the actual slides if they wanna review them or?
sure, yeah, this can be posted on our website for sure. Yeah. No, that's a great question. So I just share that with you because besides narrating the slides, posting the slides online for people to review, we will schedule a parent virtual meeting this Thursday at 6 p.m. So the video and the survey will go out Tuesday. Parents will have an opportunity to provide feedback, community members' feedback, teachers, etc., provide the feedback. There will also be an opportunity for parents or stakeholders to ask a question. And then it's our plan that Cheryl and I will present Thursday night at 6 p.m. in a virtual meeting, presenting the feedback, the plan, and any frequently asked questions that we can call together based on the feedback that we receive from the community. And the Erie County Department of Health is supposed to be letting us know how they would receive our plans as well, our modified plans. So there you go. So it's exciting news because we can provide 5 days of in-person instruction for our elementary students. And it's also very important news for our community to understand that the community transmission rate is still considered high in Erie County, and we need to do everything we can to mitigate the spread of the virus that way as well.
Brian, can I ask one more
Sure.
question? So will the Wednesday virtual day change to like their regular 7:15 to 1:36 time instead of start time at 8 o'clock? And will they be live streaming every class all day on Wednesdays instead of like I know now they don't do gym or they don't do certain classes.
Yeah, so
Will that be changing Wednesdays or not?
So it is the intent of the memorandum of agreement on August 26th that every teacher, to the extent possible, is live streaming. So that should include Wednesdays as well. Oh, what did I say?
Sorry.
Just
April.
follow me.
Good catch.
What's that rush summer?
Brian, another question, in terms of what other districts are doing, do you have any gut at this point in time, or most districts doing something similar to us?
Yeah, to my understanding today is yes. And I know Williamsville had an announcement that was on Channel 2, because they submitted, they talked about their plan, but their plan also is hybrid for secondary.
That's what I thought, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Anybody who's wondering.
Yeah.
Like me.
Well, thank you for letting me share this news. It is good news. It's really, if you recall, it's the thing that we've been talking about for a long time, that the New York State Department of Health had to provide us with this updated guidance. They finally have, and now we're going to act, and we should be ready to go on April 26th for all of our elementary students.
Great, thank you. That is good news. We are all very excited about that. We do not have anything under the Board of Education report or anyone signed up for the public comment session for general items. So that brings us to committee of the whole or information for the roundtable, starting with one.
I got nothing.
Jake.
If I could just briefly mention that it was an honor to be out there for the ribbon cutting earlier this evening. I was not on the board when all of that planning and that process went. So I just want to extend my thanks to the current and past board members that were part of that process, Dr. Graham, quite frankly, everyone involved. Couldn't be more excited for the athletes at Grand Island. It's an absolutely phenomenal facility and just super exciting. So thank you for all that great work you guys put in.
Nicole.
Just that it's great to have all these kids coming back to school and walking through the hallways, hearing the kids play their sports today was really nice to hear. It wasn't dead silence walking in today.
Jude.
I'm all set, thanks.
Ron. Cheryl.
Well said, thank you.
Ruby.
I just want to thank you for the approval of the budget presentation. And I look forward to teaching everyone everything I learned in reference to federal allowances. So as those updates come in, you will be updated as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to, I know this may have got lost a little bit in emails or announcements, but our music department, we're so proud to announce that once again, Grand Island has been awarded the best communities for music education. And I believe this is the 10th consecutive year. So congratulations to them.
Congratulations to the music department. We are very proud of all of our musicians on Grand Island. I just have a couple of dates. April 20th, it's a Tuesday, is another Board of Education meeting. May 10th is a Board of Education meeting, and the budget hearing. May 18th is our annual budget vote and our board election. With that, I would also like to echo what Jay said and thank everyone for coming out today. Jim Rosler, John Roth, Dr. Graham, everyone, Dr. Harris, everyone that's been involved in making that capital project happen. The facilities committee did a phenomenal job, and I'm really looking forward to seeing some athletes on the field and playing in their biking gear. So thank you for everyone who put forth that effort, and I'm really excited the students are coming back to school, the elementary students. This is amazing news, especially, sitting here. It's been I will just say it's been a difficult year that way, and for everyone, everyone here has children in the school district. I know it's been hard for me having my daughter home, as well as all of the community members that have had that, and I just appreciate everyone's understanding and support and patience, and I'm very excited the elementary kids will be back in April 26th. So thank you. With that, if I could have a motion to adjourn of the regular board meeting at 9:32 p.m., please. And second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.